Someone is standing at the edge of a decision about you, but what they are really deciding is not whether you are worthy. They are deciding whether they can face the truth you awakened in them. Their silence, distance, hesitation, or sudden emotional shift is not random. It is the sign of an inner conflict reaching its final breaking point. Have you felt someone pulling away, watching you from a distance, becoming quiet, or acting as if they are deciding something serious about your connection? Then listen carefully. Because when someone reaches a final decision about you, it often means they can no longer stay in the comfort of confusion. They must either move closer with honesty or retreat back into fear. If this message is speaking to your situation, write this in the comments. I choose peace over confusion. Let that be your reminder that you do not need to chase someone who is still fighting the truth within themselves. When someone is making a final decision about you, the first mistake is to believe that you are the only subject of that decision. You think they are sitting there measuring your worth, your beauty, your loyalty, your patience, your mistakes, your presence, your absence. But often the real battle is not between them and you. The real battle is happening inside them. You have become the face of a question they can no longer avoid. Am I willing to grow, or do I want to remain protected by the same old fear? This is why their behavior may feel confusing. One day they seem close, the next day they become distant. One moment they appear interested, the next moment they act cold, silent, or unavailable. That inconsistency is not always proof that nothing is there. Sometimes it is proof that two forces are fighting within them. One part of them feels pulled toward your energy, your depth, your sincerity, your emotional truth. Another part of them feels threatened by what that connection demands. Because to choose you honestly, they may have to stop hiding. They may have to become responsible. They may have to admit feelings they tried to deny. They may have to leave behind the comfortable identity of someone who avoids, controls, runs, or stays emotionally safe. You are not just a person in their mind anymore. You have become a mirror. And mirrors are dangerous to people who have spent years avoiding themselves. Through you, they may see their fear of intimacy. They may see their pride. They may see how often they choose silence over truth, distance over vulnerability, and control over surrender. So when they hesitate, it is not always because you are lacking. It may be because your presence exposes the exact place where they are still divided. This is why you must not take their inner conflict as your personal failure. Their decision may involve you, but it does not define you. It reveals what they are able to face within themselves. If they choose honesty, they are choosing growth. If they choose avoidance, they are choosing the familiar cage of their own fear. Some people do not become distant because the connection means nothing. They become distant because the connection has touched something they were not prepared to face. Your presence may have reached a place in them that ordinary people never reach. It may have awakened a tenderness they buried, a fear they avoided, a longing they tried to control, or a memory of pain they promised themselves they would never feel again. And when this happens, their final decision is no longer simple. It is not just, do I want this person? It becomes, am I ready to face what this person brings out of me? This is where many people misunderstand emotional distance. They assume distance always means rejection. But sometimes distance is a defense. It is the mind stepping back because the heart has started moving too deeply. A person may feel drawn to you, but also frightened by how exposed they feel around you. With you, they may not be able to hide behind their usual mask. They may not be able to pretend they are unaffected. They may not be able to keep acting detached when something inside them is clearly responding. Your presence may have disturbed their old emotional system. Maybe they were used to shallow connections where nothing demanded honesty. Maybe they were comfortable being admired but not truly seen. Maybe they knew how to flirt, disappear, return, and stay in control. But then you came with a different kind of energy. You made them feel seen beyond the surface. You made them feel the weight of their own avoidance. You made them realize that staying emotionally unavailable is not strength. It is fear dressed as control. So when they are making a final decision about you, They are also deciding whether they can tolerate the truth your connection exposed. Can they face their fear of intimacy? Can they admit they care? Can they stop hiding behind pride? Can they meet you with maturity instead of confusion? Do not reduce their hesitation to your lack of value. Your presence may have forced them to confront a version of themselves they have been running from for years. Their silence may feel like a wall, but sometimes it is not the absence of feeling. Sometimes it is the sound of their old pattern beginning to lose control. A person who has always survived by avoiding emotional truth will not suddenly become clear just because the connection is powerful. In fact, the more powerful the connection becomes, the more their defenses may rise. Silence becomes their hiding place. It becomes the room where they can delay the truth, avoid responsibility, and pretend that nothing serious is happening inside them. But silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence is pressure. It is the mind trying to hold back what the heart already knows. They may not be speaking because speaking would make everything real. If they say what they feel, they can no longer pretend. If they admit they miss you, they can no longer act detached. If they acknowledge the connection, they may have to change their behavior. So they stay quiet, not because the truth is absent, but because the truth has become too heavy to carry casually. This is why their silence can feel so intense. You may sense that something is happening beneath the surface. They may still watch you, think about you, feel your absence, or replay moments between you, yet outwardly they remain still. That stillness can be frustrating, but it often reveals a person who is caught between the old self and the new demand of the soul. The old self says, stay safe, say nothing, keep control. The deeper self says, be honest, stop running, face what this means. When their old pattern starts losing control, they may become colder before they become honest. They may withdraw more before they return with clarity. They may act indifferent because indifference is easier than vulnerability. But you must be sharp here. Do not romanticize silence forever. Silence may reveal conflict, but it does not excuse emotional cowardice. If they are truly growing, silence must eventually turn into truth. If it never does, then their silence is not transformation. It is avoidance choosing itself again. They are measuring the cost of returning to you, because coming back is not as simple as sending a message or appearing again. If they return with real intention, they may have to face everything they avoided before. They may have to admit that their silence hurt you. They may have to acknowledge that their pride created distance. They may have to explain why they pulled away when honesty was needed. And for someone who has built their emotional life around control, this can feel terrifying. This is why they may delay. It is not always because they do not care. Sometimes they are standing in front of the consequences of their own behavior. They know that returning to you means they cannot simply restart the connection as if nothing happened. Something has changed. You have changed. Your energy is not as available as before. Your patience is not as blind as before. Your heart may still feel something, but your self-respect has started standing beside it. That is what makes a decision heavy for them. They are not only deciding whether they want you, they are deciding whether they are willing to meet the version of you that no longer accepts confusion as love. They may sense that if they come back, they must come back differently, not with games, not with half-truths, not with emotional crumbs, not with the same pattern wrapped in sweeter words. And this is where their inner truth is tested. Do they want the connection enough to become accountable? Do they want closeness enough to let go of pride? Do they want your presence enough to stop hiding behind fear? You must understand this clearly. If their return requires you to forget your pain, lower your standards, or pretend their absence meant nothing, then it is not a return. It is a repetition. A real return carries responsibility. A real return comes with humility. A real return does not ask you to erase what happened just so they can feel comfortable again. Your detachment changed the power of the connection, because the moment you stopped chasing, the old rhythm between you collapsed. Before, they may have been used to your emotional availability. They may have expected you to explain, reach out, soften the silence, fix the tension, or keep the connection alive even when they were giving very little. Your presence may have been so consistent that they never had to fully face what life would feel like without it. But when you pulled your energy back, something shifted. You stopped feeding the uncertainty. You stopped filling the empty spaces they created. You stopped proving your worth to someone who should have already recognized it. And that silence, your silence, becomes powerful because it removes the comfort they were leaning on. Now they must sit with the weight of your absence without the distraction of your effort. This is often when a person begins making a final decision. Not because your detachment manipulated them, but because it revealed reality. They begin to feel what they ignored while you were still tying. They begin to notice the space you occupied in their mind, in their routine, in their emotional world. They may replay your words, remember your patience, feel the loss of your warmth, and realize that your energy was not ordinary. It was something they became used to receiving without fully respecting. But listen carefully. Your detachment is not a game. It is not a strategy to make them panic. It is the return of your dignity. It is your spirit saying, I will not keep standing at a door that someone refuses to open. That is why it changes everything. It forces them to decide from truth instead of comfort. If they value you, your absence will awaken honesty. If they only valued your availability, your absence will expose that too. Either way, your detachment gives you clarity. It stops you from begging for answers and allows their actions to reveal what their words never could. Their final decision may reveal their level of consciousness, because what a person chooses under emotional pressure shows you who is guiding them within. When everything is easy, anyone can appear loving, spiritual, mature, or sincere. But when truth demands courage, the mask begins to fall. A person's response to vulnerability reveals whether they are led by awareness or fear, by honesty or ego, by growth or the need to stay protected. Someone who is becoming conscious will not necessarily be perfect. They may still feel fear, they may still hesitate, they may still struggle to speak clearly, but eventually they will move toward truth. They will try to communicate, they will take responsibility, they will acknowledge the impact of their actions. They will not hide behind silence forever and expect you to understand pain they refuse to explain. Their decision may be difficult, but it will carry respect. But someone who is still ruled by the unconscious pattern will choose the easier escape. They may disappear instead of speaking. They may act cold to avoid feeling exposed. They may blame you for the discomfort they feel inside themselves. They may create confusion so they do not have to offer clarity. They may return only when your absence hurts them, not because they are ready to love you properly. This is why you must observe the level of maturity behind their decision, not just the decision itself. A person can come back and still be asleep. A person can say they care and still avoid accountability. A person can miss you and still not be ready to meet you in a healthy way. So do not be blinded by emotion. Watch their courage, watch their honesty, watch whether they choose truth when pride gives them an easier option. Their final decision will show you whether they are ready for real connection or whether they are still loyal to the fear that keeps them small. You must not put your life on hold while they decide, because waiting too long for someone else's clarity can quietly become a form of self-abandonment. At first, it feels natural. You care about them, you feel the connection, you sense something unfinished, so you wait, you watch for signs, you replay old conversations, You wonder what they are thinking, whether they miss you, whether they are finally understanding what they risk losing. But slowly, without noticing, your entire inner world begins revolving around their uncertainty. This is where you must wake up. Someone else's confusion cannot become the center of your life. Their silence cannot become your schedule. Their hesitation cannot become your identity. Their inability to decide cannot be allowed to decide how much peace you are allowed to have. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to pause your own becoming for them. Because the truth is, if they are making a final decision, that decision belongs to them. You cannot force it by over explaining. You cannot speed it up by suffering. You cannot make them more conscious by destroying your own peace. A person must meet their own truth from within. If you drag them toward clarity, they may arrive physically, but not emotionally. And then you will still be carrying the relationship alone. So keep moving, keep living, keep returning to yourself. Let your days belong to you again. Let your energy rebuild. Let your heart breathe without checking whether they have finally chosen you. This does not mean you do not care. It means you are no longer willing to make your worth dependent on someone else's emotional timing. If they choose you with honesty, they will find you standing in your dignity. If they choose silence, you will already be walking toward your peace. Whatever they decide, it will reveal what was real, because a final decision strips away illusion. Before this point, everything can live in possibility. Maybe they care, maybe they are afraid, maybe they will return, maybe they will finally speak, maybe the silence means something deeper. The mind can create 1,000 stories when the heart is still attached. But when someone reaches the edge of a real choice, the fantasy begins to break, and the truth starts showing itself through action. This is why you should not fear their decision. You may fear losing them, but what you truly need is clarity. Confusion can keep you emotionally trapped far longer than rejection ever could. Confusion keeps you hoping, waiting, interpreting, excusing, and lowering your standards for tiny signs. But truth, even when painful, gives you ground under your feet again. If they choose honesty, accountability, and real communication, then the connection may still have life in it. Not because they missed you only, but because they are willing to meet the truth of what happened. That is what gives a bond a future. Not emotion alone, not longing alone, not late night thoughts or hidden feelings. A connection becomes real when both people are willing to stand inside it with maturity. But if they choose avoidance, silence, pride, or emotional games, then life is showing you something you must not ignore. It is showing you that their fear is stronger than their willingness. It is showing you that they may feel something, but feeling is not the same as choosing. Many people feel deeply and still behave weakly. Many people miss you and still refuse to grow. So let their decision reveal the truth. Do not chase the version of them you imagined. Watch the version that appears under pressure. If they choose you with clarity, receive it carefully. If they choose distance, believe the pattern. Either way, you are not left powerless. You are left with the truth, and truth is the beginning of freedom. So if they are making a final decision about you, do not fall into the trap of thinking your worth is on trial. It is not. Their decision may involve you, but it is not the measurement of your value. It is the revelation of their inner state. It shows whether they are ready to face truth, choose maturity, speak with honesty, and meet the connection with courage, or whether they are still ruled by fear, pride, silence, and avoidance. You must understand this clearly. A person can feel deeply and still choose poorly. A person can miss you and still remain silent. A person can know your value and still lack the courage to honor it. That is why you cannot build your peace on what they might do. You cannot keep your heart suspended in the air, waiting for someone else to become brave enough to speak. If they return with truth, Let their actions prove what their words promise. Do not accept a return that only reopens the same wound. A real return carries accountability. It does not ask you to forget your pain. It does not ask you to lower your standards. It does not come back only because your absence became uncomfortable. It comes back with clarity, humility, and the willingness to meet you differently. And if they choose distance, let that truth stand. Do not chase the person who chooses silence over honesty. Do not romanticize confusion until it becomes a prison. Do not keep feeding an illusion just because a connection once felt powerful. Whatever they decide, you must choose yourself. Choose peace over waiting. Choose dignity over chasing. Choose truth over fantasy. Because the final decision that matters most is not only the one they make about you, it is the one you make about yourself, your worth, and the life you are no longer willing to pause for someone who cannot meet you with clarity.